Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Operating Officer of the Varkey Foundation, Kate Noble.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the second day of the Global Education and Skills Forum. I hope you had a wonderful time last night at the beach party. We're looking forward to an incredible day together today. Today, we're going to focus on the future. We've got an incredible range of speakers for you this morning, all at the cutting edge of their fields. We have leading academics, we have tech visionaries who will give you a taste of the future. We have Iyad Rahwan, who is an associate professor of MIT. We have Ambarish Mitra, the co-founder and CEO of Blipper. And we have for you Al Gore, who is the former vice president of the USA and has written a book on the subject of the future. But before that, I think everyone in this room will agree that the Global Education and Skills Forum always brings something new. This year, we were proud to launch tomorrow our new EdTech Summit, which showcases innovative startups that can help improve education in low-income and emerging economies. As part of the Tomorrow Summit, we have also launched a brand new prize, the Next Billion EdTech Prize, which is named after the billion young people and counting who are denied access to their birthright, a good education. Just as the Global Teacher Prize was set up to shine a spotlight on the great work of teachers across the world, the Next Billion EdTech Prize has been set up to focus on innovative technologies that are destined to help children learn in parts of the world where they're denied access to an inspiring teacher and a great learning environment. Since Friday morning, we've had 42 EdTech startups who've made it their mission to bridge the gap between those who have education and those who do not. These startups have been pitching to a panel of judges made up of venture capitalists, philanthropic investors, and experts in EdTech and learning sciences, as well as senior education policymakers. Every startup has showed great ingenuity, a bold vision, and most importantly, the grit to keep going against the odds. I thank you all for blazing the trail for those who will follow. The judges found it really difficult, but they've chosen a final 6. In just a few moments, these final 6 will pitch in front of you, and they'll pitch to an esteemed panel of judges live on this stage. The judges will then select the final 3 who will each walk away with $25,000. And then you, the audience, will be able to choose our winner of the EdTech Prize 2018. You'll see on your seats, you have voting buttons. I'll explain what to do with them when we come to the time. So first of all, I'd like to invite our panel of esteemed judges to the stage. First, I'd like to invite Jay Varkey, who is the chairman of the Varkey Foundation. Jennifer Carolan, who is the co-founder and general partner of Reach Capital. And finally, Mike Butcher, editor-at-large of TechCrunch. Thank you, judges. I'd now like to welcome to the stage our 6 finalists in the Next Billion EdTech Prize competition. Could I welcome Chatterbox, Learn, Learning Machine, Localised, Teach Me Now, and the Biz Nation. Thank you, startups. So could I invite Chatterbox to come forward and give us your pitch?
I was 4 years old when I arrived in the UK as a refugee with my mum, Petuni. She was a civil engineer who spoke English and 3 other languages fluently. When we were forced to leave our home because of the Civil War, I had to watch my mum become unemployed in the UK for more than a decade. And we all know this story isn't uncommon. Refugees with degrees and valuable skills still face shockingly high levels of underemployment worldwide. My name is Mursal Hidayat, and I'm the founder of Chatterbox, a language tutoring platform powered by refugees. We train and give work to unemployed refugees in the booming language learning industry, a market with $60 billion worth of opportunity. We charge our clients a fee for tuition and use this to pay a living wage to our tutors. And by using technology, including online scheduling and video classrooms, we can connect refugees with learners around the world. Our clients love our intensely human approach to language teaching, which is being developed with support from the UCL Institute of Education. In fact, in less than a year and a half, and mostly with only one team member, we've generated more than $100,000 in sales. And in our recent fundraising round, we've been backed by experienced investors from Silicon Valley like Phil Libin and Tech for Good investors like Bethnal Green Ventures. This is a scalable and sustainable model for social impact. And with 1 billion more refugees due to climate change predicted by 2100, an idea like Chatterbox has never been more urgently needed. Thank you.
Please welcome .learn.
In the developing world, online video learning is neither free nor widely accessible. The issue isn't so much the lack of internet as it is the cost of internet. In Kenya, for example, it would cost several dollars to stream a single hour of YouTube video. We are .learn, and we are going to make online video learning work for the next billion by making it as accessible and as affordable as SMS. Now we do that through our video vectorization technology, which packages online video lessons into a text-based vector format. Now by encoding video as text rather than pixels, we can deliver the same exact videos in file sizes that are up to 100 times smaller. At that level, a student can watch an hour of video for less than the cost of sending a single text message, making online video learning practical and affordable for the first time to billions of students across the developing world. And that's pretty game-changing. We work with edtech companies to make their videos data light and accessible for their users. We've piloted this technology with several companies in Africa who together have reached over 300,000 students to date. Also, we've had over 100 companies sign up for a beta. And when they implement our technology, we will already be reaching over 10 million students. And we're just getting started. We've been featured on TechCrunch and CNN, and our MIT and Harvard team are backed by some of the biggest names in the field. So join us, sign up on our website, and help us bring online education to the next billion. Thank you.
Please welcome Learning Machine.
Good morning. You are looking at a picture of 2 Syrian refugees. They are drying their official records on the beach behind them after arriving in a new country. Now, even if they succeed in salvaging these official documents, whatever country they end up in, Greece, Brazil, Germany, the UK, they will still be unable to verify those documents. Why is that? Because in the 21st century, document verification is still a human process. It involves a human calling another human from an issuing institution to verify that this individual's documents are authentic. It involves them requesting another copy of that official document from the issuing institution to be mailed. In short, document verification is still a paper-based system that takes a lot of time and human energy to make use of. What this means is that we have 5 million displaced people, the most well-educated refugee population in human history, who in effect have to start from scratch. This is a massive loss of human capital. And with the blockchain, we can prevent these types of tragedies from occurring in the future. So the question we're all asking today, how can we prepare youth for 2030, involves giving youth ownership of their official records of achievement. In order to translate education into social capital, into opportunity, you need to be able to document it, and you need to be able to verify it. Working with the MIT Media Lab, Learning Machine has developed BlockCerts, which is the world's only open standard for issuing, receiving, holding, sharing, and verifying official records on the blockchain. Thank you.
Please welcome Localized.
Did you ever look at someone's career path and think, if that person can do it, so can I? Think back to when you just started out. Who guided you? If you're a college student like Amar, it's not so simple. Amar is a top engineering student in Jordan, and he's thinking about a career in renewables. But he's never met anyone who deals with smart grids or talked to anyone at the companies he hopes to one day join. Amar and his friends are hungry to know what roles are out there when they graduate and what skills and contacts they'll need to succeed. There are 100 million students like Amar in emerging economies today, and that number is growing as enrollment in higher education skyrockets. 50,000 schools lack robust career services and alumni networks to help students build career community in fields like AI, EdTech, FinTech, and more. That's where Localized comes in. Localized helps colleges in emerging economies prepare students for the future. On our platform, students access career guidance, role models, and expertise from global professionals who share language, culture, and roots. Our big vision is to turn brain drain to brain gain at scale. Experts create channels to share best practices and future trends in their industries, and students can join as many channels as they want. We're live at localized.world in Arabic and English. We're launching with partnerships across the Middle East. Our next market is India, followed by Latin America. We want to talk to your governments, companies, and schools about partnership. Help us ensure that students, no matter where they live or what language they speak, find career guidance from role models who get it. Thank you.
Please welcome Teach Me Now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taya, and I'm the proud founder of TeachMeNow.com. I will never forget my first two students. One had ADD, and the other had dyslexia, and they were both predicted to fail their exams. Now, my proudest moment was watching them both graduate with way above average scores. When I started teaching, the more requests I started getting online. I had Skype, I had email, I had PayPal, I had a lot of other things to coordinate my online classes. But I was looking for an Uber or Airbnb-like platform, but for live and on-demand learning. The more research I did, I was surprised to see that the most popular online learning solutions have up to a 90% dropout rates. What we do at Teach Me Now is focus on that personal and human connection, connecting a learner to the right expert, mentor, or tutor, no matter where you are in the world. In fact, our first class happened between a professor in Venezuela teaching a student in Saudi Arabia. And last year alone, we had one single teacher make over $100,000 teaching through our platform. But what we've built is much more than just a marketplace. we've actually built our own virtual software. So you can have live audio video chats, interactive documents, and much, much more. This is now the engine that empowers teachers, teacher entrepreneurs, schools, and institutions to empower their teaching and their impact to scale it to the next billion. Thank you so much.
And finally, please welcome the Biz Nation.
While society innovates, our educational system remains the same. Schools are not preparing the doers, the change makers, and the cutting-edge thinkers the world truly needs. Entrepreneurship is seen as a fundamental driver of job creation, yet most students around the world are not taught entrepreneurial skills in school. My name is Daniela, and I'm a 22-year-old entrepreneur from Colombia. And the problem that we're solving is the huge education skills gap, lack of quality education, and job opportunities for youth in the developing world. My sisters and I started our first business when we were 6, 7, and 8 years old. And since then, we embarked on a mission of dramatically reshaping education. And that is exactly how the Biz Nation started. An online learning platform that teaches entrepreneurship, technology skills, and financial education. In addition, we train teachers in our methodology, and we provide them with our project-based learning curriculum. We give students the opportunity to start companies, but at the same time, to learn critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, and communication skills. Our methodology makes us very unique because it improves the levels of significant learning by targeting each student's learning style and combining that with neuro-linguistic programming techniques, storytelling, experiential learning, and motivation. Today, I'm happy to say that 10,000 people already believe in the Biz Nation. And the perfect example to showcase our results is the CIS, where 78 students are already successful entrepreneurs. I believe in the power of education, and if you do too, let me hear a yes. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Thank you so much.
So thank you to our 6 finalists for such incredible and powerful and passionate pitches. It's no mean feat to get your message across in 2 minutes, and you've all done a fantastic job, so thank you. A round of applause. Can I now please ask Mike Butcher to give his verdict on the 6 and to pick our final 3?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to have been here with the judges. It was an extremely difficult competition. There was so much talent. If you're in the room and you pitched in the Tomorrow Zone, please stand up. All your startups who pitched the last 2 days, round of applause. But unfortunately, there must, of course, be finalists and must, of course, be winners. So, in concert with my fellow judges, we were delighted to announce the 3 winners of Tomorrow Prize, Emerging Tech Prize, which is .learn, Teach Me Now, and finally, Chatterbox.
Thank you, Mike, and congratulations to our 3 winners who will all win a prize of $25,000. Now it's your turn. We have, as you can see, the beautiful Tomorrow trophy on the podium there, and one lucky winner will take that home with them. And it's your choice who wins the trophy. What I'd like you to do is to take your voting consoles, and you'll see the instructions here. It's anonymous. You need to make your choice. Press the button firmly. If you would like to vote for Chatterbox, please press 1. If you'd like to vote for .learn, please press 2. And for Teach Me Now, press 3. May the voting commence. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the votes are in. Are the votes in, Mike? Moment of tension while we wait for the votes. The tech's working beautifully, obviously, for our EdTech Prize. The votes are in. We're just waiting. Mike, are we ready to announce?
Well, the winner of the trophy is Chatterbox.
Lady on the end. Mike and Jennifer first.
Thank you so much.
Everybody come up. Oh, winners first.
Winners first, okay, yep. Four judges, four judges.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, come on.
Oh, the selfie.
Come on.
Selfie. So it just remains. Thanks. It just remains for me to thank our judges and all of the judges who have been part of this prize, to thank the winners, to congratulate the winners, the three winners and our finalists who've pitched so well this morning, to all of our startups who've pitched. If you haven't been down to the Startup Souk, please do go, have conversations with these wonderful entrepreneurs and see how you could take some of their solutions and their inspiration back to your country. So one final round of applause for all of our participants. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great. Okay. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Iyad Rahwan.
Hi, thank you for having me here. Today I'm going to talk about the ethics of artificial intelligence and specifically the ethics of autonomous cars. So I work at the MIT Media Lab, which is a really fun place to work as a scientist. It's like a playground. And I run a group of about 20 scientists, students and postdocs called the Scalable Cooperation Group. And my group's overall goal is to reimagine human cooperation in the age of social media and artificial intelligence. Because as you know, both these technologies can be weaponized, but they can also be used for good. So I'm really interested in how we regulate these systems. And to think about how to regulate a machine, we have to think first about how we regulate a human being. So Larry Lessig, who's a constitutional scholar at Harvard, defined these 4 forces of regulation. The way we regulate a human is through these 4 forces: laws, markets, architecture of the environment and the systems that we use, but also norms. Social norms regulate our behavior in important ways. Now, when you replace Larry here in the middle with a robot or an AI or a machine, then these forces also play or should play a role in this regulation. And as a case study, we can think of autonomous cars as an example of this kind of system, right? So, and the backdrop to this is the Isaac Asimov laws of robotics that many of you are familiar with. I just wanted to put them out there as a reminder of how we think about these kinds of problems. That machines should never harm a human being, they should never allow a human being to come to harm, and they also have to obey the orders of humans, and they should protect their own existence in this order. And Asimov even introduced a zeroth law, which is to make sure that machines do not harm humanity as a whole. So let's go back to autonomous cars now and think about the potential benefits of this technology. So more than 1 million people die every year due to traffic accidents, and autonomous vehicles promise to eliminate 90% of those accidents. That's a huge number and really huge, significant saving in life that make it imperative to develop this type of technology and adopt it quickly. But the problem is people are concerned about the behavior of these machines, which are literally driving massive pieces of metal in the urban environment. And this very kind of classic trolley problem emerges that people are use to exemplify this ethical trade-offs that the machine has to take. So in this scenario, a vehicle is about to crash into a bunch of pedestrians because maybe it's a group of children that is crossing the street all of a sudden, and the car can swerve and harm a bystander in order to save these pedestrians. Should the car do this or should it not? Who should decide? And so on. And more importantly, what if the car would swerve and harm its own occupier, right? The passenger in the car in order to save the greater number of people? Who does the car have a duty to protect? And who gets to decide these sorts of answers? Now, the transportation regulators have been thinking about these problems. They acknowledge that they are ethical, normative problems, and they acknowledge also that there is no consensus and no way to really measure metrics to evaluate against the behavior of these sorts of systems. And these things have basically been fundamentally unsolvable, but we have seen similar things before. For instance, this bull bar or moose bar in Canada is a big shiny object in front of the car that has an impact on the safety of the occupants, increases their safety, but it also decreases the safety of people in other vehicles as well as pedestrians. So we make these sorts of decisions already about whether or not to allow these kinds of things. So for instance, in the UK, these things are banned. In the US, they are not. Now, the problem here is that in the autonomous vehicle, we don't have a shiny metal object. There is thinking that is causing the distribution of harm is inside the car. It's inside a black box, which is the algorithm that is driving the car. And these things don't have to be so black and white. It's not about killing one group of people versus another. It's a statistical thing. So for instance here, if a large truck drives by you, you might veer a little bit to the left, or you might veer a little bit to the right. Now, in a given scenario, nothing may happen. But over millions of these types of scenarios, if you stay close to the truck, you may actually end up harming the passengers. Also, over millions of scenarios, if you're closer to the cyclist, you may end up killing a cyclist at some point. So these things will emerge in the accident statistics, and they are ethical in nature. They are ethical trade-offs. And this is not really something that is science fiction. This is an actual Google patent filed a few years ago for autonomous driving. And in here, the car has to decide whether to overtake a truck that is stuck at the light. And the car has to make a decision. Again, this is from the patent filing. And it computes a risk penalty that is based on the probability of different outcomes, as well as the risk magnitude or the penalty of these outcomes. So you could think of these things as the liability, the financial liability or the reputational liability of different kinds of accidents, right? So these things are really going to make it into actual products. Now, the media has been very active in discussing this question, and when the car makers started talking about these topics and making statements about what the car should do, they got in trouble. For instance, one major car manufacturer of luxury vehicles said, you should protect the person in the car, and they quickly got in trouble. Tabloids started calling them, saying that they will kill children in order to protect the wealthy owners of these cars. Obviously not very good public relations move. Now, what happened is they withdrew this statement, and they said, we will do what is legal and what is socially acceptable, but we actually don't know what that is, because nobody has run a survey until we did. Now, some other technology leaders have been a bit more active and proactive in talking about the importance of ethics. And even President Obama himself spoke to Joey Ito, who's the director of the Media Lab, about this topic and identified this issue as a moral one. Now, in my own research, what we did was we surveyed people and asked them, what kind of ethics do you wish the car to follow in given situations? And I'll give you first the result that we published a couple of years ago, which is summarized in this line. I would never buy a car that will sacrifice me, but I want everybody else to buy such cars. So there is a contradiction here, or there's the disconnect between what I think is good for society and what I'm willing to contribute to bring about that outcome. Okay? This is an old problem. It's called the social dilemma or tragedy of the commons, and it's very difficult to solve. Now, what we did after that is my students have built this website called The Moral Machine, which you can visit yourself and try. The Moral Machine creates more complex scenarios. They're still admittedly cartoonish. They're still simple. But there's 26 million possible comparisons that you can make, because we change the age and the gender and sometimes the species of the different victims. Sometimes they're jaywalking. Sometimes they're not, and so on. And thanks to some traditional media, but also to some social media celebrities, we garnered significant support and interest in this platform. In fact, we translated it to about 10 languages. We have 40 million decisions now from people worldwide, from over 4 million users. And we also have a wealth of detailed data about people's demographics as well. So this has inadvertently become the largest ethical, experimental ethics survey ever conducted. And we actually have coverage of the entire world, not just the US or the West. And you can compare it to the map of the lit world, and you can see that we actually have a fairly good representativeness in our data. Now, this is the first time I actually present some of the data that we've analyzed from this large survey. And I thought that maybe we can take some votes just with the hands to make it quick. And I want to ask you here, what do you think the car should do? So you're an external observer, you're looking at this situation, and you're being asked, what do you think the programmer of the car should program it to behave in this scenario? So if the car continues ahead, it's going to hit a barrier, and the two people in the car are going to die. But if the car swerves, it's going to kill 2 pedestrians. What do you think the car should do? How many people would say, let the car keep going straight? Okay, what about swerve? Okay, so I would say more people say, let it go straight. So people here are favoring pedestrians to some extent, and indeed, this is what we find in our data. Okay, let's pick another scenario. Now, in this scenario, we have a child crossing the street, but you can swerve and kill an adult. You can see here that the car is empty. Maybe it dropped you at work, and it's going to park itself, and it finds itself in this situation. How many people would say, let the car keep going straight? Almost. Okay, and how many people would swerve? Great. Okay, so clearly the imperative to save a child is greater than the imperative not to intervene, right? And indeed, this is what we find in our sample. Now I'm going to show you a couple more. So in this case, the car can swerve to kill a person who is crossing illegally to save a person crossing legally. Okay? So how many people would stay in this case? Go ahead. And how many people would swerve? Okay. So I ran this thing. Indeed, most people would say swerve. And when I ran this with a major car manufacturer in Germany last year, in Germany, this number was even higher. You make your own interpretation. Okay, and now one more. And in this case, there are two people crossing illegally. So what do you think is more important, saving more lives or saving the person who hasn't done anything wrong? Okay, so how many would go straight? How many would swerve? Okay, I would say about 50-50. And indeed, this is where roughly it goes. And in Germany, of course, swerve is more than 50%. But what this really highlights is that there are different considerations that we have to take. There are different values that come into conflict very quickly. And this really challenges our own ethics and challenges us to figure this out together because we don't agree on all of these things. Now, actually, Germany has been the first country to create an ethical guidelines for autonomous vehicles. They created an ethics commission, which consists of people from all walks of life, including lawyers and engineers and car enthusiasts and pedestrian, safety people, even a Catholic bishop. It sounds like a setup for a joke. But here is what they came up with. So first they said, well, if you can avoid the situation in the first place, that should be your priority, which I think we can all agree on. The second thing they said is that any distinction based on personal features is prohibited. And notice that this includes age. So they're not allowing to prioritize children, something that you felt very strongly about. So I think this is an example where even the regulators may not get it right necessarily. Also, general programming to reduce the number of injuries may be justifiable, but it's not mandated. So that's another thing where it's not enforced. And finally, parties involved in the generation of the mobility risk must not sacrifice non-involved parties. So this is the case of if you jaywalk, then you should not, somebody else should not be harmed because of your mistake. So we have actually analyzed the data. The work is currently in review. And I just wanted to say that we've learned a bunch of really interesting things. And one of them is that Asimov is kind of wrong, because you cannot have universal machine ethics. You cannot have a simple set of rules that applies to the whole world. So when we did this analysis and we compared Germany to other countries, we compared the West to the East, we found very interesting cultural differences in expectations. And these things correlate with a lot of institutional and cultural variables. And I think that's important because if we are to build machines that reflect our own values, then we need to understand those values more, and we need to quantify them as well. And we need to also negotiate in order to agree on what these things are and what the important ones are. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ambarish Mitra.
Hi, everybody. Today I'll talk about 6 macro technology trends which I envisage will shape our future. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but it'll give us an idea where we are heading. But to do that, we've come up with a unique format, and while you guys must be entering the room today, you must have been given these small handouts of cards. Don't throw them away, yeah? They're like extremely precious. You might be able to even auction them on eBay afterwards. I'm not even kidding. So they're like really original pieces of art done by 2 very well-known artists. When the Varkey Foundation came to us to say that, hey, Rishi will be doing this, we made an extra effort to actually present this idea to a bunch of young students. When I presented the 6 topics I'll be covering today, it was a lot of young people's interpretation as well, showed in an artistic way what the future would look like. So today, while I'm talking, this will be like a world's first format where after every 2 minutes of conversation, I'll be showing an augmented reality narrative of what the future would look like. So straight away, let's go on to topic number 1. So I want the slides to change. Guys, could you change the slides, please? Okay. So the first topic is ever-connected world. What's going to happen is we will enter an era of ambient computing. If you don't know what that phrase means, is computers will go beyond a format of where you type into it for information. Actually, more than 75% of information you access in future, 2030 and beyond, would be consumed by natural language translation, what you're already seeing with the likes of Echo, but in a completely different scale in all languages. And also vision-based computing, where computers can see and understand the world like humans do, and it can actually give you a lot more information. And you'd say that, why do we need it? Actually, there's a biological deficiency in us that our imagination and our curiosity is way bigger than our vocabulary. So even when you see millions of things in your life every day, you cannot use your vocabulary to describe everything, like a flower or a piece of art or an amazing outfit or a unique chandelier. So you would see a lot more mixture of this ambient computing. And it's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be combined. And I think slowly, this heavy dependence on typing to get information would reduce. We'll also have some sense of a personal device. It will be like an ID. I cannot define the form factor, but it will be some sort of a miniature supercomputer which will unlock everything around you. And also, really, you'll see Internet of Things come to maturity, where customized coffee to car arriving on time to you reaching, engaging, appointment scheduling, your machines reminding you when to work out, when to eat. All of that stuff would unlock. And finally, some sense of a digital ID connected to blockchain technology, where you would have ownership of your data, which is a very big agenda item right now being considered, but it'll be unfolded as we progress. And I'm predicting there could be a data consortium where we as consumers can contribute to, and also large giant tech companies can transact from blockchain technology. But generally, we are heading towards a world where users would certainly have a lot more control of their data and could even be paid for it. So on that note, I'll show you the artist's interpretation of the first concept, which is an ever-connected world. So could we move to the phone media, please, on the screen? I don't see the signal yet. We are preparing for the future, don't worry. Yeah, thank you. So it should appear on the screens now. I'm seeing the signal here. Just teething issues. It's not reacting still. Okay. Bear with us, guys. These things happen, but it's quite a critical part of the presentation. We have done this before for some reasons. But it's amazing irony, right, when it comes to technology. So we're going to do a slightly old school way, where you'll be able to see my screen. If we focus on the camera, it'll slightly subdue the experience, but you get an idea. So here, I'll be pointing at this card, which shows you an artist interpretation of this gentleman sleeping right now in their bed. This whole artwork is in 3D, and he gets a traffic alert. The person wakes up, walks towards outside his house, automatically gets the right temperature for optimum for his requirement, 22.3 degrees centigrade, gets out of his house, automatically gets coffee served to him at the right temperature again, and then you would have his hat served to him, and then the car unlocks with his optimum music being played, and he sets off to his usual day. So this was the first interpretation by the artist of an ever-connected world. So we'll move on with the next topic, which is, could we change the slide again, please? Is a shift in city structures. So we'll also see, which previous speaker spoke about, autonomous driving would come into maturity, and it will not just be restricted to autonomous driving. I mean, we're in a great city of experimentation already. We will see drones. Apparently, Dubai is going to be the world's first city to have drone-based taxis, so drones, and also transit between far-off places to people necessarily will not be restricted to living in cities. So transportation systems like Hyperloop, we'll see more of that. But generally, there'll be this mindset that you don't have to stay in cities anymore, because what is really going to collapse is concept of time. So if you can reach your workplace within 15, 20 minutes, and even if you live like 60, 70, 80 miles away from the city, which is something which is required because it is anticipated the world population to reach almost 10 billion people by 2050. So that's something we have to look at, but cities cannot change their shape overnight. That's why a lot of autonomous driving would help, smart sense of traffic lights would help, and people's preferences and choices would be to live in a lot more greener areas. in general. One more factor that will change in our lives is something connected, and it's a bit of a scary topic, but don't be scared of it. It's actually for everybody's benefit, where a huge amount of cameras are installed in majority of the world's global cities, and all those cameras have some level of human supervision, observing what's going on, either for sense of traffic flow or sense for crime prevention. And I think we'll have a lot more intelligence in those cameras where whether the police could be in the right place, right time, much faster, or generally, we will have an important part of a hybrid society where human-driven cars and autonomous cars would coexist. So how do you cope with that semi-chaos is not alone just going to be driven by sensors, but some level of AI-based computer vision, which will also impact how city structures are based. So we'll go to next artist interpretation of it. I'm telling you guys, this would have been a lot more enjoyable if you saw it on this screen. But I guess you'll have to enjoy it in your card. So you'll need to come back 5 more times. So if you focus on this again, please. So what you're noticing here from an artist's point of view, this card automatically, that same person who woke up got into his vehicle. Again, this whole thing comes out in 3D. He and his co-passenger are enjoying. You're seeing they're going through a lot of mountains and forests. So that's depicting that that person lives outside the city. And you eventually reach a lot more crowded urban area where you get off. And that's it. And you get back to work. Important thing to note, like this is just a piece of paper, but it can completely become a storytelling tool. This is also a large part of the future. Thank you. The next prediction is rise of AI. Though AI is a lot more ambient, it's going to be in everything we're talking about, but it's good to emphasize slightly. Artificial intelligence would be in all walks of life, particularly in industrialization, in education, in robotics. But it's not going to be as grim as a lot of people are painting it, like a very dystopian view. It'll actually create a whole new set of opportunities. We will also see some incredible neuron-based engineering. There's an incredible company here already presenting called Emotive, where a person was able to drive a Formula 1 car just with their mind. So you'll also see a lot more mind-based communication, mind-based manufacturing. There would be certainly in certain industries job losses, but we will see a whole new wave of employment created to actually perfect these AI systems, because end of the day, AI systems require human intelligence to correct it and support it. And even when internet was born, that we many a times in a lot of popular media, we end up blaming the internet for a lot of things, but internet was created by people, and it does benefit overall the society a lot more. So we will also see that AI is nothing like not a separate swimming lane in isolation where all of you would observe and see what's going on with your lives. We'll actually see a whole new wave of people contributing and being paid for it. And it's connected to my first point also, that do you ever get paid for the data you contribute to the internet? A part of those will come together, and we will see like tremendous amount of intelligence comes in. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's diagnostics, there will be a significant improvement. And I don't think there's this man versus machine thing as much that is predicted is going to happen. Humans are going to carry on doing a lot of human functions, and a lot of the mundane functions, which generally humans don't enjoy, is going to be taken over by robots for efficiency purposes. So we will go back to showing one more artist interpretation of it. I've lost my cameraman. If we could, thank you. You'll have to come 2 more times after this. So here, what we're noticing is, if you can see, there are 2 gentlemen talking about an idea. One is thinking of circles, another thinking of triangles. They combine together, they create this bicycle in 3D space. And while they were doing this, through neuron waves, the same intelligence got transferred to the robot here. It's fascinating how kids came up with these ideas. And the robot mimicked it and created the same bicycle. Thank you. A large factor is creativity in education, major theme of the conference. We will see a lot of intelligence applied to early infant education. I think sometimes hugely underestimated the importance of child development between the age of 1 and 6, and what can be done there. Tremendous amount of focus goes into knowledge and STEM education and all the stuff, which is critical to where the world is going, but actually formation of the human brain, what makes us like smart, legible individuals, that shaping up happens very early in our life. And it's irrespective of choice of profession, whether we go become an engineer, doctor, smuggler, anything. But your brain is a good brain when you learn a certain amount of vocabulary growing up. So again, ambient computing will make a big difference in shaping of that. Also, slightly repeated, but moving forward, creativity will play, development of creativity, development of better human skills will play a bigger role in children's and education development. And some of those actual subject matter topics might be, or checking of homework or things like that might be better. The boring part of teaching could be slightly better handled by AI-generated systems. But actually, generation, how do we become better humans? You know, what is the role of human ethics? Does even spiritual development have a role in bringing up children? You know, sometimes when we're talking about children, we often bring our children to be very Indian or very British or very American. How about grow up to be better human beings and think of the world in a lot more united way? We will see a teacher's role become a lot more engaged in empathy, in kindness, in community, all those aspects of development rather than a very professional outlook that you're going to grow up to be an astronaut or a scientist and all of that. Those choices would evolve when this hybrid of let the humans do the human part really well and the machines do the machines part really well, we will see. And I absolutely a strong believer that at no point in future the role of the teacher disappears. Actually, more people who are in other professions would become teachers because end of the day, with climate change and many other things, I think the world needs to become more united and think of more existential problems than we sort of think of things as divided and nations and growth and all those things. So on that note, I do have a teacher interpretation of this too. 2 more cards, people, please bear with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan, Cabinet Minister and Minister for Tolerance of the United Arab Emirates.
So continuing, here is the artist interpretation, where a very excited student comes out of a corridor, really eager to learn, and a teacher is asking a couple of questions. The teacher is slightly shown as a form which is semi-holographic, semi-real. I'll leave it to your interpretation. And then they're having a lesson of understanding of pyramid. So the student immediately learns the shape and the concept of pyramid, straight away goes to a 3D printer and prints it out, which the student created, and the teacher is applauding, and the student is very excited. So this just shows a combination of importance of relationship, but also importance of science and creativity and merit all put together in this piece of art. So the next point, thank you, is really, really important is genetics. It's a philosophy, but some people believe the inside of the human body, that it's almost a microcosm of the entire universe outside, except we haven't figured it out. It's my philosophy. And genetics will play a very, very big role. So far, in the last few hundred years, everything has been focused on the outside, but actually the human body within has so many answers to so many questions that we just at the beginning of figuring it out. And all the way from early stage, from gene sequencing to precision medicine to actually imagine just by, with your DNA, if you pretty much get the exact medicine you require for your body. Because you may not realize today we are like semi-guinea pigs to pharmaceutical industry in general, because every time you have a paracetamol or any other general drug, 50 milligram, only like 1 or 2 milligrams is actually working on your body. The remainder is wastage and sometimes affects your other organs. So general drug intake would be a lot more minimal. You'll take like 1 or 2 milligrams precisely down to your DNA and ailment what you need. And that could be brought to you instantly. So, and a lot of interesting companies are already working on this. The company called Global Gene Corp, they are doing a lot of work in the gene sequencing space. There's a company called Regeneron who are doing some interesting work in precision medicine. And another very interesting company in Britain called Oxford Nanopore, who are minimizing in a fastest way how can you take out DNA for instant processing, literally as small as a mobile phone. So incredible work happening there. I'll very quickly, because we're running out of time as well, I'll quickly show you an artist's interpretation. And we're on the second last chapter, people. So you'll notice here, literally from this card, from someone's bracelet, they figured out that that person has a flu, and a medication has been ordered immediately. And pretty much a drone comes out, flies to you, and delivers a medicine. That's all. So literally, if you fall ill, within minutes, a medicine would be delivered to you. Brilliant imagination. So the last one is really a personal favorite, and we'll definitely see this almost within 2030, is concept of energy and time. You know, since beginning of time, everything we have been aspiring as humans, all kinds of growth, we're trying to live a bigger life in a smaller amount of time. You know, like what Alexander traveled in, I don't know, a few hundred years ago, we can do it in 2.5 hours today. So continuously, you know, everything we want to do faster, you know, but we'll reach a point that can our brain's cognitive capabilities even handle that anymore? Because there's going to be so much information, we could be somewhere so fast. There's still we've not reached that limit, but still there's a limit between the years what we can do and process. So it might, I mean, there are some interesting research happening by companies like Kernel and Neural Lace to even enhance humans' cognitive capabilities. Without going into the question of ethics, today it's very easy for us to judge that, oh, that's modification of the brain, but if I tell you that any time if a human race ever faces any kind of existential related crisis, and it's a very far-off thought that, hey, we've consumed planet's resources and all of that, and only ways we could live in an outside world, we will all unite to enhance our capabilities. But that's a debatable question. But we will also notice that supersonic travel would come into play. We can go from any corner of the world, like within 2 to 3 hours. We will see that inside 15-year cycle. We will see a lot more space travel coming into fruition, where people would be going beyond the boundaries of our own planet and discover outside planets, outside journeys, and probably will help us sometimes get a, we've read so many times, every time an astronaut goes in outer space, they come back to be better thinking humans because they see the whole world in unity as one single planet. So we will see that, and also energy as a source, solar energy would become absolutely the most common source of energy supply. And we will, lastly, generally see a lot more people going down the enlightenment curve. I mean, we are also, as a human race, constantly changing, and we would see generally a rise of spiritualism in the society, how we measure our life, how we measure our time, and is our existence only for economic pursuits or not? Several of those questions are going to be asked when we go through this lifetime. Last piece of demonstration on the art piece, the artist's interpretation of it. Thank you very much. Yeah. So what you're noticing here is this the card with the planets, where our whole planet comes to life in 3D. And then you're seeing these supersonic jets flying from one corner of the world to another, and they're also going to outer planets. It's a beautiful interpretation. This is one of my favorite. You guys can see yourself in the background. And that is all. Thank you very much. Yeah. Please, those cards are here. Enjoy it in your own time. You would love it. My concluding remarks was that sometimes it's very easy to criticize technology, but actually technology is a tool. It's like a pencil. You can write with it, or you can kill somebody with it. But majority of technologists, when they build things, they have the best intentions in mind. So don't blame the technology, blame the intentions. And we ourselves as technology have a very big ethics question to answer, particularly when we're in this AI age. But I can tell you, people are a lot more conscious today on the role of the human and the role of the ethics. And also, I'd like to remind you all that technology is a major equalizer in the world. A lot of the differences and the parity is being brought. And even on topics of not just equality between rich and the poor, but also, I personally believe, not often spoken about, but even on the topic of gender parity, engineering developments like microwave oven and dishwashers and washing machines have contributed to a more equal society between man and woman than often even government policies. So that is all. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan, Cabinet Minister and Minister for Tolerance of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I know that you who live and work in the United Arab Emirates have already welcomed the many visitors from abroad to this Global Education and Skills Forum. I'm delighted to join you in welcoming our guests to this global culture that is Dubai. This is a city, and the UAE is a country that have made education their priority since the nation was founded 46 years ago. Our nation's founder, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the centennial of whose birth we are celebrating this year, believed, and I quote, that the prosperity and success of the people are measured by the standard of their education. Sheikh Zayed acted on his belief by building a superb education system, essentially from scratch. I said from scratch because I am witness to that. In my early years when I was very young at that time, we used to study under a tree. And the only source of an education we had our holy book, the Quran. That's by reading it, we learn how to read and to write. So that is really a scratch, and that's how far we came. Both public education and private education, so well exemplified by our dear Sunny Varki's many gem schools, are flourishing, not only in the United Arab Emirates, but all over the world. Thank you, Sunny. But thank you. But are they preparing students for the reality of the year 2030? You are here to help the UAE and every other country on the planet answer that question by re-examining their educational institutions and their programs in the light of your speculations about what that reality will be 12 years in the future. Had this forum assembled in 2006, would have actually foreseen 2018, 12 years in the future? If you were in the classroom in 26, you may remember the overhead projector, a plethora of PowerPoints, and some CDs and DVDs. You may remember stacks of heavy textbooks and the transmission of essays composed on a PC or a laptop to a printer for hard copy submission. Mr. Google was only 8 years old and was still slugging it out with other search engines. Facebook was 2 years old with fewer than 100 million users. Twitter had just been launched WhatsApp, and Instagram were nowhere to be seen. Distance learning was still learning to walk. I will spare us a comparison between 26 and 2018 regarding governments, economies, social mores, and violent conflicts. Change in technology alone makes the point that foreseeing the reality of 2030 is a tough assignment. Nevertheless, I think we can be sure about a few things. We will still be human beings, I hope, with intellects and emotions. We will still live together in families, communities, and countries. We will still have differences between beliefs, languages, religions, cultures, nations, ethnicities, genders, financial resources, the list goes on. In other words, we will still live in a world marked by profound diversities. We will still be facing challenges regarding economic development, health, the environment, and education, as well as international peace and improvement of human dignity and understanding. I think we can also be sure that the energy, education, vitality, and enthusiasm of young people can and will move the global community to focus on issues of common concerns and to seek solutions to the most important problems of our time. And that belief leads me to conclude that we must prepare our students today to be a good men and women in 2030 and beyond. Schools must play a prominent role in that project. Most important, what will be the character of the teacher. This forum recognized the truth of that proposition. The teachers whom it is honoring are people possessing not only remarkable teaching skills, but also admirable characters. Even if their students years hence forgot a fact or confuse an idea or bungle a technique that they have learned in class, they will always remember the character of their great teachers. Such good people exert lifelong influence. But even faculties packed with good people cannot alone prepare today's students to be good men and women in 2030 and beyond. We must all participate in that project, just as faculties must ensure that they are providing admirable moral leadership. So we, other adults in the world, must reassess our own moral values. Here in the UAE, the year of Zaid has nudged us toward the reassessment as we have recalled the life of the late Sheikh Zayed. Reflecting on the historic achievements has been particularly instructive to us. He not only united our Emirates in 1971 and led us in peace towards prosperity, he also fostered a spirit of tolerance that has enabled us to welcome the world to our new nation. Sheikh Zayed's leadership and his values and those of his successors have produced unparalleled economic growth accompanied by social and political stability, with constantly broadening opportunities for our country's citizens and residents. Our President, His Highness Sheikh bin Zayed Al Nahyan, supported strongly by the patron of this forum, the Vice President, Prime Minister, Ruler of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and by the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and the Deputy Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, recognizes that tolerance has worked to everyone's advantage in the UAE. It has bridged the gaps inherent in diversity and the diverse elements of our population cross those bridges daily. We talk to each other. Our outlook broadens, our curiosity sharpens, our understanding deepens, our respect for people different from us increases, and our commitment to our own values strengthens. My reflection on the life of Sheikh Zayed reinforces my conviction that without tolerance, our young people will not be prepared for tomorrow, let alone 2030. We must shape society that nurture, encourage, and promote tolerance. For this to happen, our graduates must be people of good character. They must, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. They must be secure in their beliefs and values, show empathy and genuine concern for others, and engage diversity with curiosity, not fear. Our graduates must be skilled cross-cultural communities, have conflict resolution skills, show resilience in the face of challenge and change, and be active participant in shaping our communities. From this base of good character, we must trust them to make decisions and take action that will make the world a better, more tolerant place. My friends, if we value tolerance, we must act on its belief. Good men and women teaching our youth can act on its behalf. So can families, so can governments and businesses. So can we all. If we do not act in support of tolerance, we are failing our children. The challenge facing educators to help prepare students for 2030 and beyond is daunting. Technologies that impact the teaching and learning processes will come and go between now and 2030, but it is the values that educators instill in their students that will have a lasting impact. And it is the value of tolerance that will have the most profound and beneficial impact. I wish you great wisdom, inspiration, and boundless energy as you tackle the issues surrounding global education today and in the future. Thank you and best wishes for a wholly successful forum, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back on stage Chief Operating Officer of the Varkey Foundation, Kate Noble.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in this room agrees that a good education should be the birthright of every single child. But amid the cold compromises of politics and decades of missed targets, it can be easy to lose heart. No matter how hard we try, it sometimes feels that change will never come. Perhaps the best way to remind ourselves of what we're really fighting for is to hear how a good education and what it means to those who are denied it. The lengths that they will go to, the things that they're prepared to sacrifice, the risks that they will even take with their own lives. Our next three speakers have crossed borders, battled life-threatening conditions, and overcome personal tragedy. And they have done all this for a better education and a better life, not just for themselves, but for others. If they don't give up, neither should we. Through their stories, let us be inspired to make the difference. Let their voices stay with us long after we have left this conference and returned to the pressures of our everyday lives. Please welcome onto the stage our next three speakers. Sungju Lee from Pyongyang in North Korea, Emma Yang from New York in the USA, and Rodrigo Mendes from Sao Paulo in Brazil. So Rodrigo, Emma, and Sungju, all of you have beaten the odds to fight for an education. All of you have shown such courage. Rodrigo, perhaps you could tell us your story first.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. My passion for sports began when I was a kid. I started playing soccer at the backyard of my home, and as soon as I felt confident, I asked my father to subscribe me in a championship. I remember the day when I was selected to the major team of my club. That was like a dream for a boy at that age. Jumping forward in time, when I was preparing myself to enter the medical school, I went through a car robbery. I was leaving home when two armed robbers approached me and shot me through the neck. So the consequence was the paralysis below my shoulders, and I had to leave school and dedicate all my time to different types of physical therapy. But luckily, I had the best support someone can get from family, physicians, and friends. And when I started attending rehabilitation clinics, I noticed that I was an exception, that I was a privileged person. The majority of the people who go through accidents or who are born with disabilities also face misery. I remember the suffering of a family that could not pay for the treatment of their son who was born with cerebral palsy. And that touched me a lot. And that's when I felt that I could do something in terms of reducing inequality. So the sad thing is that thing that still happens to many families. So what's the size of this segment nowadays? According to the World Health Organization, 15% of the global population have some type of disability. So we are talking about 1 billion people. And when we take a deeper look at studies about inequality, we observe that this segment confronts the most severe levels of discrimination. So what can we do as citizens to change this context? Perhaps more important than talking about income inequality is to talk about education inequality. In other words, we are not going to prosper as a society unless each person has access to school, to knowledge, access to the labor market, and to dignity. And this also applies to the persons with disability. That's the purpose that has been guiding my life. Therefore, I founded an institute which mission is to guarantee that every child or teenager with a disability has a chance to achieve his or her best as human beings, to achieve autonomy through education. And it was because of this purpose that my life returns to sport. Some years ago, UNICEF and the Barcelona Soccer Team Foundation invited me to develop a program aiming to take advantage of the World Cup and the Olympic Games in Brazil. So the goal was to encourage public schools to explore physical education in a different way. No longer ruled by competition, but ruled by inclusion. In that sense, we created a course that has been attended by teachers from all regions of Brazil. So each participant assumes the commitment to elaborate and to promote classes that enable the participation and the fun of every student. And in the end of the course, my team and I visit some of the cities in order to take a closer look and to register the impacts. There are hundreds of amazing stories that deserve to be shared. The Dalai Lama once said that it is an illusion to talk about sustainability without first recognizing that all human beings are interdependent. That's unavoidable. And I think that's what unites us here and today. So I truly believe that it is our duty to give back the beautiful things that lives offer us every day and to act hard in order to build a better society. So my name is Rodrigo, and I am fighting for a better education for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo, for sharing your incredible story. Emma, could I ask you to talk to us now?
Sure. My name is Emma Yang. I'm 14 years old and the founder of Timeless. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my dad put me in front of a computer and showed me Scratch, which is a platform for teaching kids how to code. I instantly fell in love with it and was coding within hours. I loved it because I was amazed by the extraordinary range of things you could create with a couple of lines of code. It didn't matter whether it was a game, a tool, or any other application, whether it was simple or complex. It was my own personal creation that was special and unique that I could share with the rest of the world. This is what motivated me to continue to build websites, mobile apps, and more. In the summer of 2015, I participated in the Technovation Challenge, which is a global technology entrepreneurship competition for girls. I developed this app called Concussion Checker, which is an easier way to evaluate a head injury for the possibility of concussion. Developing this app and the accompanying business plan was my springboard into technology on a whole new level, using technology to help my community and to solve real-world problems. I realized that even though I was 11 years old and a middle school student, I could create apps, products with meaningful functionalities that could impact people around the world. We reached the finals. We went to San Francisco and won second place globally. Even though receiving the award was amazing, it was my discovery of a whole community of girls and women who had groundbreaking ideas that could change the world that I cherish. It changed my entire perspective. When I was around 7 or 8 years old, my grandmother forgot my birthday, but we thought she was just being a little forgetful. But then she forgot how old I was, what she just had for dinner, and later on how to turn the TV. She lost track of time and forgot where she was. All of the common difficulties faced by Alzheimer's patients. As my grandmother's disease progresses, we continue to look for ways to help her. We set up visual aids around the house to help her remember events and continue to send her photos in hopes that she'll remember us for as long as possible. But as time went by, I started to wonder, is there a simple mobile app that could help my grandmother and other Alzheimer's and dementia patients to remember events, stay connected and engage with friends and family, and to recognize the people around them? An app that would help my grandmother in the ways that the things that we set up for her helps her remember. Research shows that stimulating your memory and socializing, especially by using a computer or a mobile app to look at photos and stay engaged with loved ones, could help to slow down the cognitive decline. So my family hunted extensively for such an app we were sure must exist. We became a bit disappointed because, in fact, it didn't.
There are very many tools in the market, but none of them are designed to help Alzheimer's patients improve their daily lives. In fact, very few apps in general are developed for the elderly due to the stereotype that old people cannot use technology. They are the underserved demographic. So right around this time, I started to learn how to code for the iPhone. So I took the matter into my own hands and developed Timeless. Let me show you the picture for the app. So Timeless is a first-of-its-kind, caregiver-assisted, easy-to-use app for Alzheimer's patients that helps them remember events, stay connected and engage with friends and family, and to recognize the people around them using artificial intelligence-based facial recognition technology. Let me show you the key features of Timeless. Timeless has 4 core features. Updates helps patients stay engaged with loved ones by showing a stream of photos sent by family and friends. Each of the photos are tagged the name and the relationship to the patient of the person in the photo by the facial recognition. Today simplifies daily information and events to help the patient manage their day. Contacts is a picture phone book that allows the patient to contact their loved one at a touch of a button. The most unique function is Identify, where the patient can take a photo of a face, and Timeless will tell them who it is with the facial recognition. Timeless has received worldwide press coverage from the US to Spain to Mexico and Malaysia, and has been widely shared on social media. Our demo video received over 36,000 views within a year. The feedback was overwhelming. These are 2 among many. In fact, about a month ago, Bill Gates shared Timeless on Twitter and Facebook. There's nothing more gratifying than having someone like him validating the idea. And 2 weeks ago, Timeless won the $50,000 grand prize of the Women's Startup Challenge, hosted by Women Who Tech in Google, New York. And because of the prize, Timeless is now fully funded and officially incorporated startup. My experience tells me that anyone at any age can make a difference when you are driven by a purpose. You don't have to be a politician or a doctor to affect change in the world. Solve the problems that you see around you. Solve the problems that matter to you. Creating Timeless makes me believe that when you're determined to solve a problem for your community, your mission and your purpose drive groundbreaking ideas. Thank you.
It's an incredible story, Emma, and I feel humbled by your achievements so far in your young life. Thank you. Sungju, could I ask you to tell us your story now?
Yes. Your Excellency and respectable teachers and ladies and gentlemen, when I was 12, I lost everything and became homeless. Uncle JB in North Korea. To survive, I quit school and formed a gang with another homeless kids around my age. Either their parents and family left like mine or died in front of them from malnutrition. We all gave up upon education. Our school now was the streets where we learned how to fight and steal and survive. Sleeping in train station and abandoned houses. For 4 years, I lived on the streets with my gang, and I buried 2 of them with my bare hands. I even spent time in juvenile detention center in which the wardens abused the children, the weak they beat, the girls they raped. On the street, when I was at my lowest, I would look up at the sky. I had a knowing then that my parents were alive somewhere. I would see them again. I could not keep up. Whenever I saw a falling star on the street, I made a wish to find my parents. So did my friends. I had a hope that someday I would meet my parents. Thankfully, after 4 years street life, at age 16, I managed to come to South Korea with my father's help. When I arrived at Seoul, my mind was blown away. A number of cars and especially street lights from every single road. I encountered many difficulties during my adjustment period in South Korea, not only the least of which was dealing with my trauma, but the most challenging obstacle to overcome to understand the meaning of freedom and find my identity. One day, I went to a stationery store to buy a pen, but I was so confused by so many pens at the store. I needed only one good pen, so I decided to sample every pens at the store. It took more than an hour, but I could not choose one because every pen was in good condition. A manager came to me and complained me by asking, "Are you going to destroy all pens at the store?" I felt so embarrassed. I picked one and paid for it and ran out of the store. I took a moment, standing at the corner of the building. It was a moment that I found the freedom that I never tasted in North Korea. What freedom means to me is to choose a pen which I like. Through education in South Korea, I found great teachers who are dreamers and passionate about not only teaching, but also helping students struggling with their identities and future dreams. With their help, I found my identity as simply a Korean, not divided by the side of border, but a person growing up on the Korean peninsula. Around this identity, I started constructing my dream to become a bridge between South and North Korea for reunification in the Korean peninsula. Now I'm running for this dream, which makes me alive. I have a hope that someday I will meet my friends. From my personal experience, a person who has hope and dream never gives up. When I was a street boy in North Korea, there were two things that kept me alive and resilient when so many around me were dying. My hope and dream were to find my parents. Now my hope and dream are to find my friends. My hope and dream are that we can have a better humanity. My hope and dream are that that exploitation of any kind can end. We can create power balance of equality and human rights for all. United, we can end suffering on this planet. Young people who have dream and hope can be this bridge to new and more equitable world. Respectable teachers, the better future of humanity is on your shoulders. I encourage you to educate young people with the hope for a harmonious tomorrow. Hope is never lost. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your incredibly powerful stories. Rodrigo, you've really outlined for us the scale of the challenge that we have with inclusion in our world. You talked about the courses that you'd set up in Brazil to promote inclusion rather than competition in physical education. Can you tell us something about the difference that this has made?
Okay, Kate. During one of my trips around Brazil, I met Maria, a 12 years old student that was attending a public school, and Maria had a relevant disorder. She had never spoken to her friends, and because of this project using physical education, Maria was invited to create a class about physical education together with her classmates, and for everyone's surprise, for the first time she spoke. She gave her opinion, and they create together a new version of the badminton. And what kind of ideas did they propose? First, the length of the game was reduced so that the students with autism could keep concentration. Second, the judges started using visual signs so that the deaf students could understand what was happening. And third, the court was redesigned so that children on wheelchairs could walk and could mobilize with more facility. So the outcome was that these new badminton became the most popular activity at that school. And most important, Maria ended a painful period of silence and started interacting and talking to everyone. So this is one of a bunch of examples that we have about the power of changing, of shifting from competition to inclusion.
Thank you. And this is, of course, where this must start, in our schools. But the Summer Olympic Games are coming to Tokyo quite soon. What is the one difference that you would want to make?
Well, you know that according to the United Nations, it is not acceptable to separate people based on their differences. And 2 years ago, the World Economic Forum invited me to participate in that debate in Japan. The goal was to discuss how the next Olympic Games can improve their social legacy. And during the debate, the moderator asked me, Rodrigo, what do you think we can do here in Japan in that sense in 2020? And summarizing my answer, I believe that the complete separation in the Games between Olympic and Paralympic is incompatible with the concept of an inclusive society. What kind of message? So what kind of message do we send to the road, segregating people based on the existence of a disability? Besides the act of putting out the fire of the Olympic cauldron and then weeks later lighting the Paralympic cauldron just reinforces this negative message. So I believe that changes in history demands symbols. So my proposal was that in 2020, we use the same torch, the same cauldron, and most important, that we keep the flame lit between both games. So I believe that's how the Olympic flame will make a magnificent step in representing the equality among the human beings.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you. Turning to Emma now, you gave us an incredible talk. The theme of our conference is how we prepare young people for the world of 2030. And listening to you, I wonder whether you think that actually kids are better prepared for the change than adults are.
I think that, kids are in a special position to solve the problems we see today because, children are only bound by the bounds of their imagination. And I think that, by harnessing that power and empowering kids to actually see a problem that they see in their community and actually come up with a solution, especially by leveraging technology and all of these things that are coming out now that help us solve these problems, I think that it's important that, we put these into the hands of children because, I saw a problem that, other people didn't see, that, I was surprised that, this app didn't, something like Timeless wasn't already existing. And, even I learned how to code and I was able to, create something that wasn't existing before. So I think that, and there are so many examples where kids can see a problem and adults don't because we live very different lives. And so I think that it's definitely important that we, emphasize how much children can actually play a role in solving these great problems.
And do you think we need to change the way that we perceive young people?
Yeah, I think we do because, in the process of me creating Timeless, age sometimes was an advantage, but it was also a challenge because, when I was first reaching out to people who I wanted to be my mentors and advisors for this project, a lot of the time I sent so many emails and I never got a response because I was 12 years old then. And, when you see a 12-year-old emailing you about this project, sometimes you're skeptical about whether it's real or whether it's just for fun. But I think that, kids can have, aspirations as well, and that we should accept those and actually embrace those aspirations and support them.
And finally, turning to Sungju, you've moved us all, I think, with your incredible story. You said that you lost everything and were homeless from the age of 12. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this came about, and also what became of your parents?
Well, actually, when I was 12, my father left home for food to China, and he managed to come down to South Korea from China. And then he sent a broker, a smuggler, to North Korea. And a smuggler found me when I was in North Korea. So that's how I came to South Korea to see my father. And then after my father left home, my mom also left home for food, because that was that was 1998. That time, North Korea had a huge Great Famine. So some scholars estimate that about 3 million people were dead from starvation. So it was really difficult. And then also I saw kind of dead bodies on the street. It was a normal thing. So at that time, my mother left home. Still, I'm looking for my mother, because since then she's missing. So.
Okay. And recently, we had the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, and many of us will have enjoyed watching the sport. North Korea and South Korea had a joint team, and there was hope at the time, maybe an appetite for reunification. Do you think that will ever happen? And how do you think young people would adjust to the change?
Well, personally, unification is the only way to go home for me. And young people in South Korea in general, they're really busy looking for their job, as your country does, right? But they're thinking unification. But we had a really great, successful Winter Olympic game. After that, South Korea and North Korea has had a talk, and then they're planning on having summits in this April between South Korea and North Korea. Also, North Korea will have talk with the United States in May. So it's kind of peaceful movement and peaceful dialogue in the Korean Peninsula is happening now. So unification, for me, it will take time, but not it will happen tomorrow. But it will take time. But we have to kind of try to go there.
Thank you. So could I ask for a round of applause for our incredible people? Thank you so much for sharing your stories. You've inspired me, and I hope you've inspired many others who've listened to you to really fight for the change that we believe is needed to provide education to the young people in our world. And if these people can overcome it, they give us inspiration for us all. Thank you very much.